When my father's will revealed he'd left me with nothing, I collapsed on our marble floor screaming. Days later, I was sleeping in my car outside the mansion that had been my home for 28 years. That's when I realized blood ties are just red ink that can be erased with the stroke of a pen. If you're watching this, subscribe and tell me where you're from. Because trust me, this story twists more than a tornado in Texas. My name is Clara Stevens. 3 weeks ago, I was the proud daughter of William Stevens, real estate mogul and pillar of our community. Today, I'm nobody. It started with a phone call from Dad's lawyer, Mr. Finch. Clara, there are some matters to discuss regarding your father's estate. Can you come to my office tomorrow at 9? I remember thinking it was strange. Dad had only been gone 2 days. The funeral was still being arranged. But Mr. Finch had been Dad's right hand for decades, so I didn't question it. I walked into that office wearing the black dress I'd bought for the funeral. The receptionist gave me a look I couldn't quite place. Was it pity? Mr. Finch ushered me into his wood-paneled office with its smell of expensive leather and broken dreams. Please, sit down. He pushed his glasses up his nose and pulled out a thick document. I'm sorry to do this so soon after your loss, but there are complications. That's when my life split in two, before and after those papers. Your father updated his will 6 months ago, Mr. Finch said, not meeting my eyes. He's left everything, the house, the business, all assets, to your half-sister, Christina. The room tilted sideways. Half-sister? What half-sister? She's your father's daughter from a relationship before he met your mother. She's been living in Europe. I struggled to breathe. This is insane. I've never even heard of her. Mr. Finch slid a photograph across the desk. A woman about my age, with my father's eyes staring back at me. There must be a mistake, I whispered. Dad wouldn't do this. I'm afraid there's more, he said, turning a page. You have 30 days to vacate the property. Script part separator, My head pounded as I left Mr. Finch's office. 30 days to leave my home? A sister I'd never heard of inheriting everything? None of it made sense. I drove back to the mansion, no, not mine anymore, feeling like I was in someone else's nightmare. Our housekeeper, Martha, opened the door with red-rimmed eyes. Miss Clara, are you all right? You look like you've seen a ghost. In many ways, I had. The ghost of the father I thought I knew. Martha, did Dad ever mention someone named Christina to you? A daughter from before? Martha's face froze. She glanced around nervously before pulling me into the kitchen. Your father made us all sign confidentiality agreements, she whispered. But you deserve to know. Yes, he spoke of her sometimes. Said he had made mistakes he needed to fix. My legs gave out, and I sank onto a kitchen chair. How long have you known? About 5 years. She visited once while you were in Paris. She'd been in my home? While I was away. The betrayal cut deeper. That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced the halls of my childhood home, touching the familiar wallpaper, the banister my father had carved himself. How could he erase me so completely? At 3 a.m., I broke into his study. If there were answers, they'd be there. I pulled open drawers, rifled through papers, searched his computer. Nothing about Christina, nothing explaining his decision. Then I found it, a small key taped under his desk drawer. It opened the bottom filing cabinet, which contained a single folder labeled C.M. Inside was a stack of letters spanning 20 years. Photos of a young girl growing into a woman. School reports. Birthday cards signed your loving father. All while he was raising me, attending my recitals, walking me down the aisle at my wedding, comforting me through my divorce. The last letter was dated just 2 weeks before his death. My dearest Christina, everything is arranged. Soon, justice will be served. You'll finally have what's rightfully yours. The next morning, Martha found me asleep on the study floor, clutching the letters. Her face filled with compassion. There's something else you should know, she said quietly. Your father had been acting strangely these past months. Making late-night calls, meeting with people I didn't recognize. And there was that argument, script part separator, What argument? I sat up, suddenly alert despite my exhaustion. Martha twisted her apron in her hands. About 3 months ago, Mr. Finch came over. They were in the study for hours. I heard shouting. Your father never shouted. Mr. Finch said something about legal obligations and moral responsibilities. When he left, he looked satisfied. Your father drank an entire bottle of scotch that night. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. Mr. Finch had seemed almost smug delivering the news yesterday. I need to know more about this Christina, I said. I spent the next 2 days digging. Social media revealed little. She had a private Instagram with a handful of posts showing European landscapes. No personal photos. I called Dad's friends, business associates, even his golf buddies. Most seemed genuinely shocked about my disinheritance. A few avoided my calls entirely. Then Dad's old secretary, Marge, now retired, finally returned my message. Oh, Clara, she sighed over the phone. I wondered when this day would come. Your father made a terrible mistake when he was young. He got involved with a woman named Madeline in Portugal during a business trip. When she told him she was pregnant, he paid her to disappear. For years, he sent money but wanted nothing to do with the child. I felt sick. This didn't sound like my father at all. About 5 years ago, Marge continued, Christina found him. She showed up at his office unannounced. I've never seen him so pale. They talked for hours. After that, something changed in him. What do you mean, changed? He became obsessed with making things right. Started traveling to Europe frequently. But there was something else. He seemed afraid. Once I overheard him on the phone saying, you have to give me more time. I lose everything. Script part separator ===. On day 7, the doorbell rang. Standing there, like she'd stepped out of those hidden photographs, was Christina. Hello, Clara, she said in accented English. I thought it was time we met properly. I nearly slammed the door in her face. Instead, I stepped aside. Come see what you've stolen. She walked through the foyer, eyes drinking in everything. Tall and elegant in an expensive black pantsuit, she moved like she already owned the place. Which, legally, she did. It wasn't my intention to leave you homeless, she said, studying our family portrait above the fireplace. How generous, I spat. What was your intention? To replace me completely? She turned, her expression unreadable. To claim what's mine. William was my father too. For 28 years, you didn't exist to me. And for 28 years, I didn't exist to him either. Her voice hardened. Until I made him face his responsibilities. Something in her tone raised the hair on my arms. What exactly does that mean? Instead of answering, she opened her designer purse and removed an envelope. I'm not heartless. This should help with your transition. Inside was a check for $50,000. A pittance compared to my father's fortune. Blood money, I said, ripping it in half. She shrugged. Suit yourself. The house must be vacated by month's end. Mr. Finch will oversee the transfer. As she headed for the door, I grabbed her arm. What did you do to my father? How did you convince him to betray his own daughter? Her smile was like ice. I simply showed him the truth, Clara. Something you were too blind to see. After she left, I called Mr. Finch, demanding answers. I advise you to accept the situation, he said coldly. Fighting this will only drain what little resources you have left. That night, my father's old friend Judge Parker called unexpectedly. Clara, I heard what's happening. William was acting strangely before he died. He came to me for legal advice but wouldn't say about what. Something was terrifying him. Did he mention Christina? The judge hesitated. No, but he did say, everything in my life has been built on a lie. Clara. I don't think your father's death was a heart attack. Script part separator ===. My heart stopped. What are you saying? I'm saying you should look closer at his death. The timing is convenient. I hung up and ran to my father's bathroom. His pill bottles were still there, including his heart medication. With shaking hands, I gathered them as evidence. By day 10, I was living on coffee and determination. I discovered 3 things. First, Christina had visited Dad 6 times in the last year. Second, Mr. Finch had modified his billing records to hide meetings with her. Third, Dad had withdrawn $2 million in cash 2 months before his death. That morning, Martha knocked on my bedroom door. "There's someone here to see you." Downstairs waited a man in his 60s with kind eyes and a worn briefcase. "My name is Robert Daniels. I was your father's first attorney, before Finch. I've been following the situation and there are things you should know." Over tea, he revealed the bombshell. "Your father contacted me 3 weeks before he died. He wanted to redo his will again, cutting Christina out entirely." "What? But why change it twice in 6 months?" "He said he'd made a terrible mistake. That he'd been manipulated through blackmail. He was gathering evidence." "Blackmail? About what?" Mr. Daniels looked uncomfortable. "Something from his past. Something serious enough that when Christina threatened to expose it, he gave her everything. But he changed his mind." "Yes." "He was ready to fight back. We were meeting the Monday after. After he died. The pieces were falling into place. Dad hadn't betrayed me, he'd been coerced, then silenced when he fought back." "Do you have proof?" I asked desperately. "He was bringing documents that weekend. We never had our meeting. That night, I broke into Dad's safe behind his bedroom painting. Inside was a sealed envelope with my name on it and a small recording device. Script part separator, I held the envelope with trembling hands. Dad's familiar handwriting stared back at me. "For Clara, open only if something happens to me." My heart pounded as I tore it open. Inside was a single-page letter. "My dearest Clara, if you're reading this, I failed to fix my greatest mistake. I've been living with a terrible secret that Christina discovered and used against me. 29 years ago, I was involved in a development deal that went wrong. My partner, Victor Ramirez, wanted to cut corners on safety. I refused. We argued. It became physical. He fell and hit his head. He died, Clara. I panicked and covered it up. The building was later found structurally unsound, but by then I'd sold my stake. 3 people died when a section collapsed. Christina somehow found evidence linking me to both Victor's death and the building collapse. She's her mother's daughter, ruthless. Someone had been inside. My room had been ransacked, drawers emptied onto the floor, mattress slashed open. Martha appeared in the doorway, her face pale. "Miss Clara, there's been a break-in." I called the police, but— "What is it, Martha?" "Your father's study, everything's gone. The safe is empty. They'd taken my copies of the evidence. But they didn't know about the third one, hidden inside the hollow base of my mother's garden statue." The police arrived, took statements, dusted for prints. They were sympathetic but unhelpful. "Break-in's happy, mãe." Probably teenagers looking for valuables. I knew better. This was a warning. That night, as I was sealing the last of my belongings into boxes, my phone rang. Mr. Daniels' number. "Clara," he whispered, his voice trembling. "They came to my office. Took everything. Threatened my grandchildren." "Who did?" "Men working for Christina. Listen carefully. There's another way to prove what happened to your father. The autopsy report. Something wasn't right, but Finch had it sealed. You need to." The line went dead. Script part separator, I tried calling back. Voicemail. I drove to his office at midnight. The lights were off, door locked. Through the window, I could see papers scattered everywhere. My phone buzzed with a text. Final warning. Walk away with the $50,000 or walk away with nothing. I had 14 days left before eviction. No evidence, no allies, and now threats against my life. But something in me had hardened. My father hadn't abandoned me, he'd tried to protect me. Now I would fight for him. The next morning, I did something desperate. I called my ex-husband, David. We divorced 3 years ago when his gambling addiction destroyed our marriage, but before that, he'd been a detective. "Clara." He answered, sounding genuinely surprised. What is wrong? I need your help. It's about Dad. We met at a diner 2 towns over. I wore sunglasses and a hat, constantly checking for followers. David looked older, more worn, but his eyes softened when he saw me. You look terrible, he said, sliding into the booth. Thanks. You look sober. 812 days. His AA chip glinted on his keychain. Tell me everything. I did. The will, Christina, the blackmail, the threats, the possible murder. When I finished, he was silent for a long moment. You realize how this sounds? He finally said. Like I'm crazy. I know. But Dad's letter was conveniently stolen. Clara, grief makes people see conspiracies. I started to rise. Forget it. This was a mistake. He caught my hand. I didn't say I wouldn't help. I'm just saying we need hard evidence. And I might know how to get it. Script part separator ===. How? I leaned forward, desperate for any lead. David lowered his voice. I still have contacts at the medical examiner's office. If your father's death wasn't natural, there might be traces in his blood work. The next morning, David called. I've got something. Meet me at Riverfront Park in an hour. I arrived early, scanning for suspicious faces. David was waiting on a bench, a manila folder beside him. Your instincts were right, he said grimly. Your father's toxicology showed elevated digoxin levels, his heart medication. Not enough to raise immediate alarms, but definitely enough to trigger cardiac arrest in someone with his condition. My hand flew to my mouth. They poisoned him. It would have looked like he accidentally doubled his dose. Perfect cover. Can we take this to the police? David shook his head. It's suspicious but not conclusive. We need more. Tell me about this building collapse from your father's letter. For the next 3 days, we dug into the Westfield Plaza collapse from 29 years ago. News archives showed 3 maintenance workers had died when a section of parking garage collapsed. The development company, Stevens and Ramirez Holdings, had dissolved shortly before, with my father selling his stake. What happened to Victor Ramirez? I asked. Listed as moved abroad in business records, then nothing. No death certificate. So Dad's letter was true. He covered up Ramirez's death. And Christina found proof. That's serious leverage. We need to find that proof ourselves, I said. David frowned. Even if we do, it implicates your father in manslaughter. I know. But it might also prove Christina blackmailed him and killed him when he threatened to come clean. The answer came from an unexpected source. Martha called, her voice hushed. Miss Clara, I was cleaning Mr. Stevens' closet and found something odd. There's a false bottom in his boot rack. Inside was a key to a storage unit. Script part separator ===. I met Martha at the mansion that afternoon. She'd hidden the key in her bra, terrified someone would find it. They're watching the house, she whispered. A black car parks across the street every night. The key belonged to a storage facility downtown. David and I went after dark, using his old police skills to avoid being followed. Unit 247 contained a single filing cabinet and a fireproof safe. Your father was careful, David muttered, examining the safe's lock. The combination might be. I tried my birthday. Nothing. His birthday. Nothing. Then I tried the date of the Westfield Plaza collapse. The safe clicked open. Inside was a USB drive, photographs, and a leather-bound journal. My father's handwriting filled the pages, a detailed account of Victor Ramirez's death, the building collapse, and most importantly, his recent dealings with Christina. She first contacted me claiming to be my daughter. DNA confirmed it. I welcomed her, eager to make amends for abandoning her. Then she showed me the photographs. Attached were grainy pictures of my father and Victor Ramirez fighting, then my father dragging what appeared to be a body. She demanded everything, my company, my home, my fortune. When I agreed, she introduced me to her lawyer, Simon Finch. I never realized my own attorney was working with her. The final entry was dated 3 days before his death. I've given Robert Daniels everything. Tomorrow I'll tell Christina I'm going to the police myself. I'd rather face justice than let her destroy Clara's future. My hands trembled. This proves they blackmailed him. David nodded grimly. And gives them motive for murder. As we locked the storage unit, headlights swept across the facility's entrance. Get down, David hissed, pulling me behind a row of units. 2 men in dark suits stepped out of a black sedan, scanning the area. They followed us, I whispered. Script part separator, ===. David's arm tightened around me as we crouched behind the metal units. The men moved methodically through the rows, flashlights sweeping across the locked doors. We need to get out of here, David whispered. If they find us with this evidence. I clutched the documents to my chest. We had 10 days before eviction, and now proof that could change everything, if we lived to use it. David pointed to a side exit. When I say go, run for that door. Don't look back. The men were 3 rows away now. One spoke into a radio. Nothing yet. Expanding the search. Now. David hissed. We sprinted through the darkness. The alarm blared as we slammed through the emergency exit. Behind us, shouts erupted. Car. Now. David grabbed my hand as we raced across the parking lot. Footsteps pounded behind us. A gunshot cracked the night. I screamed as concrete sprayed near my feet. We dove into David's car. He floored it, tires screeching as we fishtailed onto the main road. They're shooting at us. I gasped. They're not playing games anymore. David's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. We need to get somewhere safe. Where? They found us at the storage unit. They're watching my house. In no place. An hour later, we were in a run-down motel 50 miles outside town. David paced the small room while I spread the documents across the bed. We have enough to go to the police, I said. These people have money and connections. We need leverage first. David ran a hand through his hair. We need to find out who Christina really is. What do you mean? Your father's letter said she's her mother's daughter. Who is her mother? Why would she wait decades to come after your father? I stared at Christina's photograph. Something had been nagging me since I first saw her. She looks familiar somehow. Not just because she has Dad's eyes. David picked up the photo. Let's find out who she really is. The next morning, David left to meet his former partner while I combed through the journal again. One line jumped out. Madeline always said she would destroy me. Now she's using our daughter to do it. Madeline. The woman from Portugal. I searched the name online, combining it with Portugal and my father's business trips from that era. And there she was, Madeline Cardoso, former model. In a society page from 29 years ago, she stood beside none other than Victor Ramirez at a charity gala. My blood ran cold. Madeline wasn't just some woman my father had an affair with. She was Victor Ramirez's girlfriend. Script part separator, ===. When David returned, I showed him my discovery. This changes everything, he said. Christina isn't just after money, she's after revenge. For her father's death, I whispered. She blames Dad for killing Victor. David studied the photographs. She must have spent years tracking down evidence. This was a calculated plan. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Time's running out, Clara. Walk away or join your father. We need to move, David said, already gathering the documents. They might have tracked your phone. We switched motels twice that night, paid cash, and bought burner phones. 7 days until eviction, and we were fugitives. The breakthrough came when David's former partner called our burner phone. You need to see this, he said, sending a file to David's email. Facial recognition hit on your Christina. She's not Portuguese, she's Argentinian. Real name, Sofia Ramirez. She's Victor's niece, not his daughter. She's been pretending to be my sister? I gasped. It gets worse, David's partner continued. She's connected to 3 similar cases across the country. Wealthy men with secrets, sudden changes to their wills, mysterious deaths. She's a con artist, David said. A deadly one. And Simon Finch has been her legal front in 2 previous scams. This was it, the leverage we needed. Not just to save my inheritance, but to bring down Christina and Finch for my father's murder. We took our evidence to Assistant District Attorney Jensen, a woman who'd once worked with David and owed him a favor. She listened silently as we laid out the entire story. "This is compelling," she finally said, "but we need Christina and Finch to incriminate themselves directly."
"How?"
I asked. "We set a trap," David said, "using the one thing they still want. The evidence from the storage unit," I realized. "They don't know we have it." The ADA nodded. "We wire you up. You offer to trade the evidence for your rightful inheritance." "It's dangerous," David warned. I straightened my shoulders. "I don't care. It's time to fight back. Script part separator ===. The trap was set for 3 days before my eviction deadline. The ADA's team had everything in place: surveillance, recording equipment, officers standing by. I wore a wire beneath my blouse, my heart hammering so loud I was sure it would be picked up by the microphone. "Remember," David said, squeezing my hand, "just get them talking about the blackmail and your father's death. Don't take unnecessary risks." We'd arranged the meeting at a hotel conference room, neutral ground. I arrived early, placing the files on the table, visible but not accessible. When the door opened, Sophia, walked in alone. She wore a cream-colored suit, looking every bit the successful businesswoman rather than the con artist we now knew her to be. "No Finch?" I asked. She smiled thinly. "He's waiting to see if this meeting is worthwhile." I pushed the folder forward slightly. I found my father's evidence. All of it. Something flickered in her eyes. Surprise, then calculation. "What do you want?" "The truth. Before I hand this over." She laughed. "And why would I do that?" "Because if you don't, copies go to the police, the press, and the families of those other men you've conned." The color drained from her face. "You're bluffing."
"Am I?"
I slid a photograph across the table. Sophia with another victim, an elderly oil executive who died accidentally last year. "I know everything, Sophia." Her composure cracked. "My uncle deserved justice." "Your uncle, not your father. Victor raised me after my parents died. He was everything to me. Then your father killed him and buried the truth. So this was revenge," I said, "not just money." "It was justice," she hissed. "William Stevens deserved to lose everything, including his life." I leaned forward. "So you did kill him?" A smile spread across her face. "Digoxin. Untraceable in the right dose. He never suspected his heart medication had been tampered with." Behind me, the door opened. Simon Finch entered with 2 police officers. "That's a confession," said the ADA, stepping in from the adjoining room. Sophia's face transformed from confident to horrified in an instant. She lunged for the folder, but David stepped forward and blocked her path. "Sophia Ramirez, you're under arrest for the murder of William Stevens," announced one of the officers, handcuffing her as she struggled. Simon Finch backed toward the door. "I had no knowledge of any." "Save it for court, counselor," the second officer said, reaching for his cuffs. "We have recordings of your conversations planning the blackmail." As they were led away, Sophia turned to me, her eyes burning with hatred. "He deserved it. Your precious father was a murderer." "He made mistakes," I replied calmly. "But he tried to make them right. You never gave him that chance." 3 months later, I sat in the courtroom as the verdict was read. Guilty on all charges. Sophia and Finch would spend decades behind bars for murder, blackmail, and fraud. Outside on the courthouse steps, cameras flashed as I addressed the reporters. Today isn't about winning back my inheritance. It's about truth. My father wasn't perfect, but he didn't deserve to die. I've established a fund for the families affected by the Westfield Plaza collapse, to finally bring them justice too. That evening, I walked through the mansion, my home again. Martha had prepared a celebration dinner, and David waited in the dining room. "What now?" he asked as I sat beside him. I smiled, taking his hand. "Now we rebuild. Not just the house or the business. Everything." The doorbell rang. Martha returned with a letter, from Robert Daniels. "Your father would be proud," it read. "You found the truth he couldn't face for years." That takes more courage than you know. I looked around at the walls that had once felt like a prison of secrets. Now they were just walls. The truth had set us all free.